My name is Ned Denison. I'm doing the interview today. I'm the chairman of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, and I'm also a reasonably accomplished marathon swimmer with more than 50 epic swims. Today, we're going to be interviewing Padraig Mallon from Ireland. So I'll kick over to Padraig to give you a longer introduction of himself and his various enterprises.
I'm Padraig Mallon from Northern Ireland. I've been involved with swimming all my life, from challenge swims, ice swimming, piloting, crewing, and just general fun in and around water. That's basically me.
You're too humble.
Apparently, you've done some swimming before. Tell us about your swimming.
A bit. I've done some challenge swims, some marathon swims in and around Ireland, England, South Africa, and done plenty of crewing. Pretty proud of the piloting that we've done. We've piloted, I think, 6 challenges at this stage, both in the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. We are a group of
what was that number again? I'm sorry, we didn't hear that.
6 challenges. So, and we're a group of swimmers that love swimming, love piloting, love crewing, love inspiring and driving people to their limits and helping them reach their dreams, and just love being involved in this mad sport.
And is it true your calendar on your computer only was 1 year, so you did both the North Channel and the English Channel in the same summer?
Yeah, the English Channel wasn't really one of my on my to-do list. It was just a ticking match to get to the North Channel, because I wanted to go to the North Channel and have the confidence to be able to do it. So within 6 weeks of the English Channel, I luckily was successful on the North Channel.
So Padraig, you're the chairperson of the Irish Long Distance Swimming Association, which is an honor organization in the Hall of Fame. Can you tell us about the North Channel that you folks manage and accredit the swims for? Why do people say it's tough? I've been up there a couple of times. It looked okay to me. From the ferry.
Yeah, no, the North Channel. It's the weather. Number one, the weather is unpredictable. You know, everyone knows the weather on BBC or whatever. It's 90% right, but when it comes to the North Channel, it's usually only about 50% right. The weather temperature is averaging 13 degrees during the season. You might be lucky to get a 16-degree day, but if the wind picks up, the temperature of the water drops again. You've got the lion's mane. Some people they don't bother. Other people, their body can't cope with their venom. It's a long slog of a swim. On the wrong day, it can just go all wrong, and on the right day, everything just perfect. But those right days are few and far between, and you have to be on your game. It'll if you've got a clink in your armor at all, it will find it and reveal it. So it's an unforgiving stretch of water, but very, very special to anyone that lives around this part of the world. That it's the holy grail in my eyes of challenge swimming.
And these lion manes are the cute little jellyfish that sometimes grow to be the size of garbage can lids, with all sorts of tentacles in colors not found in nature. And even when the tentacles break off, they can still sting you.
Yeah, they're just nasty little animals that have no real use really, but other than stinging you, yeah, they're just terrible. Some people, as I say, can cope with them, but if they sting you long enough during your swim, something's going to happen to your body. Some part of your body is going to start rejecting their sting. They're not nice. They're just not nice.
And this North Channel, am I correct in saying, in the first 50 years of swimming successfully, there were about 8 people that did it? And ever since Mr. Munatonis put it on the Ocean Sevens Challenge, its interest has gone up a bit?
Yeah, I've been part of the Irish Long Distance for possibly 20 years in one way or another. And the North Channel, some years there was no crossings. In those 20 years, you might be lucky to get one crossing per year. And then as Stephen created the Ocean Sevens and promoted it, it has just skyrocketed. The interest in the North Channel has it's just amazing. It's tremendous to see it. So, and it's brilliant to welcome all these swimmers from all over the globe to our shores and show them the magnificent country that we have. Not just the North Channel, the North Coast, the South Coast, the East, the West. It's all got different things to offer. Beautiful country.
And in the last year, you had swimmers from Australia, Turkey, a fair number of warm water locations.
Yeah, so in the last few years, like there's been swimmers from virtually every continent. We've had Mexicans, Americans, South Africans, New Zealand, Indian, yeah, Spanish, lots of English, South African, you name it, Russians, almost, yeah, all over the place. It's fantastic to see them coming here to battle against the North Channel.
And tell us a little bit about Infinity. I see you're sitting in front of a pool you had built a couple of years ago, and you also run a very successful cold water event up there.
Yeah, so Infinity was sort of born out of challenge swimming. When I swam the English Channel and the North Channel and crewed for my sister over many years, I fell in love with, you know, the parts of the swimming that people don't think about: the crewing, the piloting, the mental side of it, the things that people sometimes don't think of, the attitude that you have on the boat or in small proximity to the people that you're trying to look after on the channel. So from our learning from challenge swimming, the English Channel, the North Channel, and crewing for lots of other people, we decided we wanted to make a hobby into a type of business. So Infinity Challenge Swimming was born from that, thanks to Brian Maharg, one of the North Channel pilots, who gave me the courage and mentored me through becoming a pilot. Infinity Challenge Swimming was born. And then from that, swimming is a key part of our community, with Camlock Lake and Carlingford Loch quite close. And we'd always been involved in community open water swimming, running events and safety, lifeguarding and being on boats and things like that. So that's always been in the background, and every summer we have a fantastic bit of fun swimming and running competitions. And through it all, the swimming pool that we're here at Infinity Swim Academy was born. It was a piece of land that my grandfather grew potatoes on and sold the potatoes in our shop. And now we have a swimming pool that is here for the community. We teach almost 2,000 children per week. We coach adults, triathletes, competition swimmers, ice swimmers, marathon swimmers. We also do coaching, remote coaching as well. And we're only the second accredited Swim Ireland facility in Ireland, the flagship Swim Ireland pool in Ireland. And the first one is the National Aquatic Centre in Dublin. So we have a very high standard on how we teach, and we're very proud of it. Our teachers and our managers and our team here are like brothers and sisters. We all work very, very well together, and we work hand in hand with Swim Ireland, which is fantastic. So we've been going quite a while, one way or another. We mightn't have been called Infinity, but from 2009, we ran the Guinness World Records here with 220 swimmers swimming for 9 days and 10 nights. And from that moment, we really built a fantastic community and foundations for swimming in our local area. And yeah, from a pool, challenge swimming, ice swimming, you name it, we love being involved in it. And our motto here for the pool is learn with us, swim anywhere. And it's quite true. We hope in years to come that the children that we have taught here to swim might take on a challenge swim or might take on an ice swim, or, you know. So that's our ambitions and dreams, and that's what we are inspiring to achieve.
So I came up to your Hit the Wall event a couple of years ago. There were well in excess of 100 people. I spent an uncomfortably long period of time hiding in a porta toilet while you were doing the fire walk. Tell everybody about the event and all the nice things you do for the swimmers, and then the other sort of more mentally testing things.
Yeah. So, like, going back to challenge swimming again, or even ice swimming, it's 50% of it is maybe even more is mental than the physical ability of people. Not the fastest swimmers in the world can make it across the North Channel and the English Channel with a very strong mental attitude. And that's what we try to bring to Hit the Wall. So Hit the Wall, in average, it has about 170 people per year. It's held in the last bank holiday weekend in May. And unfortunately, this year's cancelled due to the circumstances. But and we try to push people's limits both mentally and physically. The mental side of it for a few years was a fire walk. So we would try to teach people that it's possible to push their own boundaries. And then last year we've done a totem pole where you had to climb up a large 60-foot telegraph pole and basically jump off the top of the telegraph pole, obviously with a harness and a rope. But it's still you have to have a bit of faith in yourself to go for it. And then we take in the cold water. So the Carnford Loch in May is roughly about 2 degrees warmer than the open sea. So it's in around North Channel temperatures in that part of the year. So I've got a wee buzzer here. 1 wee second, sorry.
So I'll continue while he's got his buzzer. So it's about 14 degrees centigrade, and it comprises of a race the first day, then off to the lake for a night swim. There are some testing other smaller swims, and then on the last day, a lot of the people are doing 6, 8, and 10-hour swims in conditions that, at least water temperature wise, are going to be similar to the North Channel. And one of the reasons I particularly like it is that I sign a number of English Channel qualification forms. And this is somebody who's done 6 hours in 15-degree water, 16-degree water Celsius. They tend to be in Cork doing a 9-day event. So we kind of call it the last 6 hours of their English Channel swim, because by that time they're quite tired. But I see a number of people who are doing their English Channel qualifier in the calmest estuary possible, or a small pond or something where everything is familiar. And that might be good, but when you get 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 18 hours in English Channel, life is different. So I think pushing people to 8 and 10 hours is really quite a good step forward. I wish more folks were doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely the way to go, Ned, because you know, you want to test yourself as early on in the season as possible and fix any problems, any issues that you're having with feeding, with crew, with your mental attitude, with your training attitude, or with your training or physical injuries that you might be starting to spot coming along. So that gives you a bit of time. When it's in May and your challenge swims in July or August, whatever it may be, then it gives you time to sort these things out or reevaluate where you're going. If your training program is up to scratch, perfect, keep it up and good work. If it isn't, then you need to go back to your homework and start looking at it again. So, and you're right, you have to train harder than your physical day, your day is going to be on the channel. And on the English Channel and North Channel, you might get the best weather forecast and your pilot will say this is going to be a class day out. and you go halfway across, and all hell breaks loose. That's just what you have to deal with. So on your 6, 8 hour or 10-hour swim, we try to fire everything at you, like you do in court distance week, and make it as difficult as possible, and try to break you in a not injure you, but try to push you mentally, and try to see where your weaknesses are, and then feed them back to you at the end of your 10 or 8 hour or 6 hour swim. So we used to do 4 hours, but 4 hours, we've pulled 4 hours now because they're just not long enough. Even for a relay swimmer, I think that if you can go through a 6 hour swim, you're certainly ready to rock and roll for a relay swim. It's not essential a 6 hour swim, but if you're doing a challenge, 8 to 10 hours is definitely a good number. You get to know yourself even better. You get to know your weaknesses and strengths, and we can certainly bring that out in you on those longer swims. We love to see our North Challenge swimmers coming to us on those longer swims. We know exactly where they are then. We have confidence on the day where we need to bring them, what type of swim they're going to have, what course that we can pilot across the North Channel, how direct a crossing we can make is dependent on how confident we are with that particular swimmer. If we aren't confident with a swimmer, we'll take them on a less chancier route, where it gives them a bit of leeway. If anything does go wrong, then there's a bit of something in the basket type of thing, so we can veer off course slightly. So it gives us a lot of confidence to have our swimmers there on the North Channel.
It is. It is one of the things that's changed a lot in the last few years. Going back 20 years ago, people decided in October they were going to swim the English Channel the next summer. They did their training, they got their physical, they did their 6 hours, and a month later, 2 months later, they were in the water. What's happening now, for all sorts of reasons, is that people are typically starting 2, 3, 4 years ahead of time. The pilot bookings are hard to come by, so there's a reason to book early. And one of the things that really shocks people when they come to me is they say, well, I'm planning the channel in, say, 3 years. I advise them the first thing to do is go to the doctor and get the physical signed off. And they say, why? And I say, well, if you work really hard for 2 years and then you fail your physical in the year of the English Channel, you're going to feel a little bit stupid. So just go get it all checked out now. Make sure you're in reasonable physical shape, and don't wait till the last year to get your 6 hour swim in. Do it the year before. Bring everything forward. Go off and do a 15K swim in unknown waters the year before and get your head around it, because the North Channel and the English Channel, for that reason, they're not friendly pieces of water.
No.
There's nothing very friendly about them, even on the nicest day. It's long point-to-point swim, not a lot of stuff to see in the middle, and they can take some getting used to.
Yeah, definitely. You want to make all your mistakes on your training leading up to it. If it takes 2, 3, 4 years to do that, then that's where you need to be. Some of the greatest swimmers that we have had the pleasure of piloting have made the silliest mistakes on their training, but the smart ones learn from the mistakes. Good friend of mine, and you know him as well, Keith Gary, made some silly mistakes on a swim that we were doing, the Port Oriel swim, a 25K swim, but he came back 100 times stronger, 100 times more organized, and his wife knew exactly how to push his buttons as well. So yeah, make all your mistakes on the lead up to it.
You recently had a trip down to New Zealand for the Cook Strait. Your sister was an aspirant swimmer. Tell us about the trip. Tell us what you learned. Tell us the differences.
Yeah, the piloting, that European, I suppose we call it, the type of piloting where you're swimming beside a boat, and the New Zealand way of swimming is slightly different. I can understand the reasons for having a small rib beside you, a small dinghy beside you, and a larger boat sitting off, and the way the Europeans or the English Channel and North Channel work as a boat beside the swimmer, just one main boat. There's some large fish down there, and I suppose it's easier to get, you could almost jump under a rib from the water instead of trying to get into the main boat if something starts to creep about underneath you. That's one major benefit. And the other one is that with the second boat, if they're going before, ahead of the smaller rib, you can spot what's going on in the currents. So there's massive currents down there. There's a lot of stuff happening under the water, and it's not predictable. We unfortunately got our ass kicked, and I have to put my hands up. All the 5 swimmers that were out that day, Colleen and Anna Stronman from Brisbane, were with us, and we couldn't make it. If we had another 12 hours, maybe we could have, but the girls were in the water for 11 hours at that stage. We were making headway up until about the 10th hour, and after that, we weren't making headway towards land. We were doing probably 1 kilometre per hour towards land, and we still have 7 kilometres to go when we pulled the pin. Yeah, we learned a lot. I think, like every channel out there, you learn every day you go out. Even the North Channel, the guy that turns around and says that they have the North Channel or English Channel or any other channel in the world off to a T, and they know exactly what's going to happen. Totally wrong. You have to give the sea and give the ocean the respect that it deserves. On that day, the currents ran for approximately 9 hours southwest, and when it turned to go northwest, it didn't happen. It basically was pushing us back from land for two and a half hours. Yeah, unfortunately, no swimmer made it that day. There was South African, Indian, Australian, Irish, and I'm not sure the 5th person was from, but yeah, all top swimmers that already had succeeded on the North Channel never made it on the Cook Strait. But it was a fantastic adventure for us. We were honoured to be able to show our hand on the Cook Straits, and we were welcomed by the community in New Zealand, and it's a beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful people, and hopefully we'll be back again next winter. Northern Hemisphere winter, we hope to go back again.
I think one of the things for the listeners to understand is that when you do something like the Catalina Channel, 9 bookings out of 10 or more, you show up at 9 o'clock on the day you picked, you get on the boat, you motor out to the island, you're in the water by midnight, and you swim in. The wind picks up if you've taken a certain amount of time. It's a fairly predictable piece of water. They can see the storms coming all the way across Pacific, and it's the Pacific Ocean in that respect. When you go to the English Channel, you don't pick a day, you pick a slot, and it's typically a neap tide. It's not uncommon for the neap tide to be completely blown away and no one swims, and people hang around the next week for the spring tide. And it's not uncommon to miss your slot for the entire year. So you've been training for 3 years and you get over there and there's no swim. Pretty soul destroying. In the Cook Strait, I just reminded of our mutual friend Attila Manioki from Hungary, who's now the person with the fastest combined times on the Ocean Sevens. Attila went down there and he waited 5 weeks in New Zealand for his swim. Yeah. So that gives you some idea of the conditions and the predictability. And then now Attila's big goal in life is to become a Triple Crown swimmer, so the rest of us will speak to him. And his New York swim is now canceled because of the coronavirus. So, poor Attila has seen his few challenges in his scheduling.
He certainly has. I have a lot of respect for Attila, the courage that he showed, not only on the whole journey through the Ocean Sevens, but I witnessed his journey on the North Channel, and his second attempt was, we basically thought it was just a matter of him turning up and swimming it. How wrong were we? was one of the scariest moments in swimming I've ever had. Being beside his hospital bed for a few days when he was in a coma, just wasn't pretty. The man is so strong mentally, physically. He fought his way out of the coma, and 4 or 5 days later, he was home with his family in Hungary. We've got I believe we have a very special relationship together, the two of us. And when he succeeded on the North Channel, it was one of my highlights of my challenge swimming and piloting career so far.
Is it true he went back to the hospital after succeeding to thank them from a vertical position?
Yes, he did, and it made headline news here. You know, it takes some courage to be able to come back the third time after 2 visits to the hospital, life-threatening scenarios that he was in. It just shows you the people that's in this sport, the courage that they have is. I don't know if there's another sport in the world quite just like this. Just an unbelievable type of guy. So he is.
There's some the talk of the sport are the group of swimmers up in Donaghadee, which is the incredibly small little port/stroke beach where people are typically setting off. And this group is called the Chunky Dunkers. Tell us a little bit about them and why everybody says they're so wonderful.
Yeah, they're just a beautiful community of people of all makes, models, and sizes, all genders, that are in a small village on the corner of Belfast, in the corner of Northern Ireland, that just love the ocean. They don't particularly swim very far distances, but they've got a community of inspiring people that have been through the mill. One way or another, they've all been through the mill, and they recognise the beauty of the sea and what it does for their mental and physical health. And they take every single swimmer under their wing that comes from all over the globe. And I think that's really, really important. I don't live so close to the North Channel, maybe an hour and a half by drive from it. So it's hard for us to be that guiding light, I suppose, for all the swimmers that come to the North Channel. But these guys, they're not challenge swimmers, and some of them may attempt it in the future, but they just want to show the community that they have to a global audience, and they really do a good job. They have got a special place in the hearts of all challenge swimmers, and you can see that from the posts that all the challenge swimmers throughout the globe post about the Chunky Dunkers. So they're an amazing group of people.
So I call that the before the swim activity, which is you've traveled halfway around the world or all the way around the world. You've come to a small place in the middle of nowhere. You're getting acclimatized to the water that's a little bit colder than you're probably used to. You're being reintroduced to some jellyfish that are larger than your average garbage can top. And all of a sudden there's 10 friendly people who welcome you, say hello, tell you where they think the best coffee is in town. And you go from being kind of alone, perhaps with 1 or 2 crew, to being part of something. It takes the edge off some of the nervousness, and it gives you a warm feeling before you start.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, them guys, I take my hat off to them, because they put these swimmers from all over the globe at rest. They really do, and guide them.
And let's talk about after the swim. So you've got a place where people are signing a wall, and then talk to us about your personal journey. You recently had awards in Ireland where people came from around the world, and you also went down to Australia to be part of the award ceremony for some swimmers down there. Tell us about the afters and how long the glow can go for people.
Yeah, sometimes the glow goes on for a lifetime. You know, you can see, especially the North Channel, anyone who's conquered the North Channel or been successful there, really holds their head high, and rightly so for a good part of their life anyway. I know I'm so honoured to be able to say I'm a North Channel swimmer, and maybe someday you will, Ned. No, I was invited to the Australian award ceremony, and I felt, because we had so many Australians over the past 5-6 years who came to the show in the North Channel and swam with us, I thought it was only but fitting that I would make the journey to South Africa, Brisbane, and join their community. Fantastic bunch of people, like they are everywhere in the globe. We had a great party, and we awarded their medals and certificates. But I think most importantly, we awarded the swim hat. So it has their particular number, what swimmer they were on the North Channel. And the North Channel is still in its infancy. It's not like the English Channel. There's still under 100 swimmers who have succeeded, possibly 83, I think is the right number. So there's only 83 people in the globe that have swum this, and there's 83 swim caps being presented, or in the motions of being presented. So to me, that's very unique, and I think that's nice to be acknowledged that you're a unique person, and yeah, just that one wee nugget of gold for all those swimmers, I think, is important. They can hold their head up, high up. Irish people aren't usually good at shouting and clapping each other in the back and stuff like that, but I think we need to get better at it, because it's a pretty unique sport, and anyone who takes on one of these challenges needed to be respected. Whether they're successful or not is secondary. So, yeah.
And you recently had your awards in Ireland as the chairman of the Irish Long Distance Swimming Association, and that long distance has really never been defined, but it's probably clearly more than a mile. And I was pleased to be part of that whole day. And a couple of moments for me is the scene where you had about 10 North Channel swimmers all standing there holding their numbered cap proudly. And the other thing that was very shocking for me, not as an American, but as somebody living in Ireland for almost 20 years, is this whole idea of applauding. Americans can applaud for 4 days in a row without stopping for something to eat or drink. Ireland, not really the same, but you must have had 85 rounds of applause in about an hour and a half. And I never saw anything like it in Ireland. And people walked out of there, absolutely enthused about not only perhaps what they had accomplished, but they were looking over and going, "Oh, so you're the guy that swam across the Aran Islands. I always wanted to do that. I spent my summers there. Let me buy you a drink and let's talk about that swim and how can I get that organized for next year?" Or, "So you did Catalina last year. I always read about that. How did you do it? Who was your pilot? How did you organize it?" And a lot of plans were made during and after that event. So that's kind of the afters in the event. And we probably don't do it enough as a sport.
No, it was fantastic, and thank you, Ned, for the welcome and for your community to help organise it in Cork. Kinsale is a beautiful place. Ireland is just an amazing country, but you're right, we don't celebrate each other's successes so much. And as you've said before, anyone who sort of tells other people about their successes in this country is going to get a tomato fired at them. It shouldn't be that way. We should celebrate everyone's successes, and it's important. It's important to celebrate successes of everyone in this sport. It's a tiny, tiny country. It's a tiny, tiny globe of a community that we are all involved in. So Cork was the Irish Long Distance Awards were spectacular. I really think they were spectacular. They were far better than we ever imagined. We were blessed to have Jacqueline as one of the main organisers, and yourself and Carl Kasha. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Who made the day fantastic. The people came from every corner of Ireland. We had record numbers, and we celebrated all the achievements that we could pull out of the hat. Some weren't from this year, some was maybe for 4 or 5 years past, but achievements that we believed should have been recognised, and we were making sure that they were being recognised. And I've never met some of the faces we have met are in their names are etched in history, and we got to meet some of the greats who came to the awards, which was fantastic. Colin O'Neill, I've never met the man. I've seen his name many a time as I look through the records of the North Channel. Conor Gunn, my parents have been talking about Conor Gunn from their childhood. I got to meet that gentleman, and we get to come together as a community then and build a community, because that's what Ireland is missing. I think it needs to be Ireland as a community instead of Leinster, Connacht, Munster, and Ulster, and that is starting to happen, and it's good to see that. Yeah.
One of the things that happened at the awards that others might be interested in is I had attended a number of channel dinners in Dover, and one of the interesting things that I remember is at the CSA dinner, they brought people back after 50 years. After they had done their channel. So 50 years later, they brought them back, and they usually weren't running up to get their recognition, but they made their way deliberately up to the stage. People in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we looked at that and we said, it's probably not going to work so well in Ireland because it's going to be a while before we're there, but we did a 15-year. So we brought the English Channel soloers and relayers back after 15 years. And a lot of them had trained together and had been part of that whole experience together, but really hadn't seen each other for 15 years. And that was a great reunion. So I would encourage people around the world, find a way to put a reunion into your next event. And it might only be 5 years, doesn't really matter. But it's a way of bringing that group back together. I want to talk to you about the newest hero in the North Channel. So for years and years and years, it was Alison Streeter, the Queen of the English Channel with 3 crossings, and it was Kevin Murphy, the 34 crossings of the English Channel, who had also done the North Channel 3 times. And then people would do their kind of singles and disappear. And this woman, Caroline Block, has got some ideas about herself. Tell us a little bit about her, what she's done, and what she plans to do.
Yeah, well, Caroline came onto our radar maybe 5-6 years ago. We were organising a swim camp in Italy, and we got an email from an American lady that we never had heard of or met before, Caroline Block, saying, can I come to your training camp? And we were trying to keep our numbers low because we were trying to just see if it would work. So we had 7 swimmers in total. Colleen, Keith, Sabrina, Olive Conroy, a few others, and Caroline as well. So Caroline came along, and I was quite impressed with her stamina and ability to just keep going like a clock, tick, tick, tick. It was pretty impressive. And I said to Caroline, and we got to know her, and we in the evening times we'd have pizza and beer, and we chatted extensively every evening. And I said, Caroline, come to Ireland and have a go at the North Channel. I think you're well able for it. So next year, Caroline lands on our shores and gives the North Channel a go, and you get to know a swimmer, even if you don't talk to them. When you're beside them on the boat and you're watching them, and you're watching how they feed and what their attitude is, and and what their stroke count is. And Caroline was the exact same at the start of the swim as she was at the end of the swim. There was no difference. There was no difference in her attitude. There was no difference during her feeding. There was no difference to her stroke rate. And I said, Caroline, that's quite unique. Yes, he hasn't got the fastest time, but that ability and her stamina was quite unique. So I said, listen, come back and join us again. She emailed me a couple of weeks later and said, what about a two-way? Yeah, I love a challenge, and I knew Caroline could trust us. She did trust us because we were through a lot of rough stuff in Italy, and her first North Challenge did not go according to plan. She was kicked from pillar to post, but she shakes her head funnily, and that was the same at the start of the swim as it was at the end. We giggle and away she swims. But she came back the next year and she attempted the two-way. We got pushed south on her first way, and it took longer. Again, the weather did not play a ball for her. She was in great spirits. I swam to shore, left the boat with Charles and swam to shore with her, and laid out grease. She played the grease. We had a chat, and she said, "Yeah." I says, "Are you fit to go?" Yeah, no problem. It was as if she just got into the water 2 minutes before that, and she started swimming again, and no problem whatsoever. Her mental attitude is second to none. I kid you not. So we swam. We swam for the next I think 7 hours. And because we were pushed so far south, we were completely off target. We needed to be further north on the return journey to avoid Belfast Lock, and unfortunately, we weren't. The night came in, and the ambient temperature, it must have been about 4 degrees, but that didn't. The cold never annoyed Caroline. The jellyfish, it was just jellyfish soup. You couldn't see the water for jellyfish. There were thousands and thousands and thousands, and the venom just got into her. She couldn't. She felt freezing because of the venom in her bloodstream, and she started to feel the cold. But it wasn't the cold. It was her body starting to react to the jellyfish stings. And there was no way we were going to keep her in there for possibly another 6 hours. And she would have swum it, but possibly another 6 hours in those infested waters. So we took her out of the water, and she wasn't in good shape, and she didn't want to leave the water, and she was quite upset about it. But as we talked in the next morning, it was the right decision to make. It certainly was. She was upset, and she you could see it really tore her inside apart, not succeeding the first time. And then we had another go at the two-way. We had another go, at the two-way, and it was pretty similar. Unfortunately, the weather that we got wasn't as kind, and you plan these things to be perfect weather, and you do your best for every swimmer. But the weather here is so fickle that it really is the Achilles heels for most swimmers. Caroline got bounced around the place for hour after hour after hour, and it took longer to get her to Scotland on the first crossing than ever before of any of her swims. We were far enough north, but the weather just continued to get worse and get worse, and it just wasn't fair on Caroline. Again, we didn't get far enough north, and Caroline's speed started to reduce. on the return journey for the second two-way, and we couldn't do it to her. We couldn't keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It wasn't there, and it wasn't for her and Caroline. And then last year, Caroline came back for a fourth time, and her plan wasn't to swim the North Channel. Her plan was, and we had agreed as between Caroline and I that we wouldn't go for a two-way last year for different reasons between me and Caroline, and that she would go for the Isle of Man and the Isle of Man solo. So there was a race on between Sabrina and Caroline, and when Caroline's window came, the weather at the Isle of Man was not acceptable for a solo swim. It wasn't safe, so we decided to have another go at the North Channel, a solo one way, which not too many people can do. I don't know anyone in the world that I could say, yeah, right, so instead of doing this swim, we'll go and do the North Channel. She has the measure of it. She definitely has the measure of it, and she has got the exact same speed when she starts as the second that she finishes, and it's quite unique in a lady. We've become good friends over the years now, and hopefully someday she will come back to the North Channel to fulfill her dreams, and we will be here to guide her to fulfill her dreams when that time's right.
Is it like many places that the jellyfish come up at night?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that night that she got very badly stung, the water, there was no movement in the water. The water was completely still. There was a good moonlight. It was good moonlight at that night. So the jellyfish just raised to the top of the water, and she was just scooping them out, hand after hand after hand, and it just I couldn't do it myself.
So in order for somebody to make this two-way,
yeah.
Is it probably safe to say you needed a night without rising jellyfish?
Yeah, it is possible, but I think we're constantly learning about the North Channel. And remember the two-way, we were told we were crackers when we first said we would do a two-way. Never mind a relay, a two-way solo. So we have changed the mindsets of different people around the community, and we're never. What we have learned yesterday is not what we're going to use. We're always learning on the North Channel and every channel and every piece of water, and looking for different ways of different angles and testing different things. So we're going to test a different model this year, if we're allowed to swim in the North Channel, that is, from what we've done before. So we've got a couple of different scenarios, and we've got a guy helping us out behind the scenes on digital models on what happens in the North Channel, because there is very little information, digital information, on what happens in the North Channel. A lot of it's hearsay and fishermen, and there's very little information like they have on the west coast of America. It's fantastic what those guys have over there with radar on the currents. So yeah, this year we'll tell the tale. I think this year we're going to have a successful two-way North Channel. We've got a couple of test swims before that all happens, and we're going to do it totally different from previous times.
Well, you might want to have a conversation with IMSHOF honoree Dr. Tim Johnson, PhD, PE. He's got several titles. He one of the reasons he's in the Hall of Fame is he did the digital modeling on swimming around Manhattan. And Steve will know that about 2 years ago, we inducted a lady, Ida Elowinski, who was the first woman to swim around Manhattan. And her story was very convoluted. This was back before the kind of rigorous witnessing, but there was a press boat that followed her around, and she swam alongside of her brother, who was handcuffed. He was a professional stunt swimmer, and it all kind of sounded a bit crazy. Steve Munatonis picked it up and said, you know, there's something here. And her granddaughter came up with all of the records and all of the press reports from the days, which started to give us a little more confidence. And then one of the things that put us over the edge was having Dr. Johnson actually look back at the tidal conditions 100 years ago and said, yeah, if she started at that place and it took this amount of time, that's consistent with a good tide. But as you say, he would have had a lot more information to deal with. I know a couple of my swims in Ireland, you kind of said, you know, well, what are the water conditions? You know, what's the surface movement? And you got a couple of guys with motorboats that say, yeah, it gets messy, is their word. The kayakers tell you they don't go out on those days. And when you're the first swimmer trying to do a double, you're going to get a few lessons.
Yeah, definitely. If you're the first swimmer or first pilot to be involved in a new or different direction, a different route on a channel, then you need to be able to dig in and go longer and harder than very many other people have done in the past, and learn from the mistakes that you're going to make. Our crew we take all our own notes when we're out in the boats, and we do a lot of we take a lot of notes, and we look back at them. In the wintertime, we would, you know, look back on different swims that we've done and why did that happen and why did this happen, and try to understand it a wee bit better. I don't believe you'll ever know it, no matter how many digital models we will have in the future of any channel, but you'll get a better sense of it. And there is a lot of luck to be played in most of these swims, and none so much as the Dalriada. It's wicked fast currents where we have had swimmers up to 10 kilometers per hour speed swimming on their own with currents pushing them off the land. But it took us many attempts to get that almost right, and a lot of long chats with Wayne Suter, and that type of thing. That's what drives me in the sport. That's what fulfills me in this sport, is the piloting and the what if and research and attempting different angles, and when someone says you can't do that, that's where we come into our own.
For the listeners, most of the epic channels around the world are kind of across the shortest piece of water. Not all of them, but most of them. In the North Channel, that shortest piece of water was thought to be unswimmable because the currents were so strong. So the classic North Channel swim is considerably longer. Mercedes Gleitz, Hall of Fame swimmer from a century ago, was one of the ones that kind of gave up on that shorter swim. And Wayne Suter was a South African swimmer of moderate speed, and just went out with a tremendous amount of planning ahead of time and proved this swim was possible. And I believe, is it Sabrina who now holds the record on the swim? Is that my fairness?
Yes, Sabrina, I think, has 8 hours 34 minutes is her time, and Wayne's was in around 12 hours. But Wayne's route was significantly different, though the route that we're working off is the one that Wayne had researched and developed, but unfortunately it didn't happen for him on the day. But I can I totally respect the guy for offering us all his information on a platter, and was just hopeful that someone else could do that swim someday. So when Sabrina swam, I would say the temperature didn't hit 11.5 any more than 2 hours. Most of it was in 10.5, and she had a real difficult time with the temperature, but succeeded. And I'm looking forward to that swim in the future, because it's a real exhilarating swim for everyone involved, the swimmer, the pilot, the crew, and things happen dramatically, because swimming due east or due west, and suddenly you're going south within 2 minutes. It just changes the flick of a switch.
So this particular channel is interesting to me because we've got the English-born woman of German extraction, Mercedes Gleitz, from 100 years ago, who declared it was undoable. We've got the South African swimmer, Wayne Suter, who proved it could be done. And we've got the Swiss woman living in Ireland, Sabrina, who's now holds a record. And it's all in this place in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, in the middle of nowhere in Scotland, that these three have marked the history. Patrick, we've come to kind of the end of our hour. The last question for you is, with the coronavirus and the situation, what needs to happen for you to take your first swimmer out this year in the North Channel?
First of all, it would need to be not given permission, but the government needs to say this is safe to now go into circulation as normal. If it's also safe for the swimmer coming to the shore, because 90% of the swimmers are coming from outside Europe, they're coming from all over the globe. It needs to be safe for them, for them to travel to our shores, and practical. It may not be practical. A lot of swimmers are not getting any training, and it may be different. I know some swimmers are training in Sydney. They may not be allowed to. Smarty went for his training swim. Talking about him, yeah. So I know June and July has now been wiped out for us. So all our swims have been pushed back. Anyone who wants to be transferred to 21, we're transferring them. Any relay slots that are taking up 2021 slots are being asked to move to 2022 to leave room for solo swimmers. We're going to work with everyone. We have to be flexible. It's the swimmer that's given their time for training and putting their life on hold. So if they can't train properly, there's no point us saying to them, no, you have to come this year. We're going to be totally flexible with every swimmer, and relay swimmers need to be flexible with the solo swimmers, because solo swimmers come first. That might sound harsh, but the solo swimmer is putting the most effort into their swim. So we'll work with everyone. Once it's safe for people to travel to Ireland and for us to take swimmers on a boat, we'll be doing that. If not, it'll be 2021, and we're looking forward to a fantastic year back on the North Channel, meeting all these amazing swimmers from all over the globe. We're looking forward to it. And by the way, Stephen had a question in regard to which nationality of swimmer is the gutsiest or the best in terms of challenge swimmers. And I think over the years we've seen a good few swimmers, gutsy swimmers, coming to our shores from all parts of the globe. And I would have to say, my hand on my heart, the gutsiest swimmer and the best swimmer on the North Channel is the female swimmer. I'll leave you with that.
Thank you very much, Park.
See you later. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you
Bye.
for your time.
Thank you all. Bye.